largest flying animal that ever lived had a wingspan longer than a small airplane. Standing upright, it was as tall as a giraffe. For 50 years, scientists pictured it doing one thing: soaring. Riding thermals for thousands of kilometers without ever touching the ground. New research says that picture might be almost entirely wrong, because the way this animal actually spent its life wasn't in the sky at all. Quetzalcoatlus had a wingspan of up to 11 meters, 36 feet. Standing on the ground, it reached 5 meters tall. Stand next to it, and you wouldn't be looking up at its head. You'd be staring straight at its chest. And chest height on this animal was still taller than you'll ever be. But its size was never the part scientists got wrong. It was what it did with that size. For decades, the accepted image was simple: Quetzalcoatlus soaring like a condor, like an albatross, rising warm air in circles, gaining altitude for free, then gliding for hundreds of kilometers without a single wing beat. Some researchers even calculated it could cover 16,000 kilometers without ever landing. A giant, elegant glider patrolling late Cretaceous skies. That image made it into documentaries, museum murals, almost every piece of paleo art you've ever seen of this animal. Then someone actually tested whether the math supported it. Researchers modeling its thermal soaring ability directly compared it to the best long-distance soarers alive today: albatrosses, condors, frigate birds. Quetzalcoatlus didn't perform like any of them. Its soaring efficiency came out below modern birds, not comparable to an albatross at all, comparable to a kori bustard, one of the heaviest flying birds alive today, and one of the worst long-range flyers, an animal that spends almost all of its time on the ground. The researchers' own conclusion was blunt. Quetzalcoatlus likely flew the same way the kori bustard does, short distances, grounded most of the time. Which raises the obvious question. If it wasn't living in the sky, what was a giraffe-sized flying animal doing on foot? The answer changes what kind of animal Quetzalcoatlus actually was. Not a soaring predator scanning the ground from above. A terrestrial stalker. Its legs weren't built like a typical flying bird's legs. They were proportioned for walking. Long, load-bearing, efficient on land. Its neck alone could stretch nearly 3 meters, combined with a long, spear-like beak that gave it a strike range most ground predators could never match, without moving a single step. Picture the most patient hunting bird you've ever seen: a heron, a stork. Now scale it up to the size of a giraffe. Here's what that actually looked like in practice. Quetzalcoatlus almost certainly walked across Late Cretaceous floodplains, the same way a heron walks across a modern wetland. Slow, deliberate, scanning the ground and shallow water for anything smaller than itself. Small lizards, mammals, even hatchling dinosaurs. Then a single strike of that spear-tipped beak, covering nearly 3 meters without the rest of its body moving at all. No swoop, no dive from altitude, just distance, patience, and a strike range longer than most of its prey ever saw coming. And it wasn't alone out there. Quetzalcoatlus wasn't even the only species in its own genus. A smaller relative, Quetzalcoatlus lawsoni, was only formally described in 2021. Built from roughly 300 bone fragments, representing multiple individuals, found in the same West Texas formation as the giant. That means Late Cretaceous floodplains in what's now Big Bend had giraffe-sized stalkers and smaller versions of the same hunting style, working the same ground at the same time. Not one apex flyer ruling an empty sky. A whole hunting strategy, walking the earth in more than one size. Which changes what you'd actually need to watch for if this thing were still around. Forget the image of something circling overhead. A modern Quetzalcoatlus wouldn't announce itself from the sky. It would be standing in a wetland at giraffe height, perfectly still, exactly like a heron waiting for a fish to surface. Except its strike range covers almost 3 meters, and almost anything under that size qualifies as prey. Livestock at the water's edge. Deer. Anything that assumes a distant, motionless shape isn't a threat until it moves. The scariest version of this animal was never the one soaring above you. It was the one already standing close enough to reach you that you mistook for part of the landscape. The largest flying animal that ever lived may have spent most of its life never flying far at all, grounded, walking, striking with a range longer than most predators need to move. Scientists still don't fully agree on how something this size got off the ground in the first place. 50 years of assumptions just failed one test. Nobody's checked all of them yet. Like if you'll never picture Quetzalcoatlus soaring the same way again. Subscribe to Facts That Ruin, new dark animal documentary every day. Tag someone who thinks this thing spent its life in the sky. Drop your guess? Sky hunter, ground stalker, or both?